And remember we said that now that things are closing in on that last week, things are starting to foreshadow each other. So last week we saw that Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. And he asked where he was laid, and then he was raised, after he was buried, he was raised from the dead. And that was a foreshadow of something to come. Now people are starting to realize that Jesus had predicted this. They didn't really understand it fully, that Jesus, in a short amount of time, was also going to be raised from the dead. And it says, then Mary took a pound of very costly oil of spikenard, anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. Now, what do you think? Do you think she thought this through ahead of time? I think she did, because she's at somebody else's house, and she's carrying around a gallon. It's actually about 12 ounces of perfume. Probably when you go from place to place, you don't generally just carry around a pound of perfume. So I think she probably thought this ahead. What do you think about Martha? Do you think that she knew about it? I'm thinking she probably knew about it. They were sisters like this, right? They were all, when the one was there, the other was there. They do the same thing. They ask the same question. And so I think they were planning a little surprise, a little celebration, or should we say a big surprise. Anybody ever been to Red Robin on your birthday? Anybody? Okay, you know what they do, right? If they know it's your birthday, people, hey, it's her birthday, his birthday. They wait till the end, and all of a sudden they come and they give you birthday cake. They surround you. They say, okay, this was a surprise. Although I don't know that you could surprise Jesus, but this was done in his honor. It was probably a surprise to everybody else there. It says that she took this costly perfume, this costly spikenard, and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the fragrance of the oil. So here she took this costly perfume. It tells us in other places, as well as here, that it was worth about a year's salary, about a year's working man's wages. Can you imagine carrying around something that's worth a year's salary? What would you be thinking if you were carrying that around? Yeah, you better be careful. As a matter of fact, Janice and I just had to carry a check to, what are those people called? The title people. It was like $3,000 or something like that. $5,000. We had to carry a check, but it was a cashier's check. We were nervous just driving there, getting to the plane. We wanted to get rid of it as quickly as possible. Here was this valuable thing, this perfume, a year's worth of wages. And she brought it, and then it tells us that she poured it on his feet. Actually, in Matthew, Mark, it also says that it was poured on his head. So on his head, on his feet. If you were having a dinner, right, and you were having a dinner with Jesus and Lazarus, you were asking Lazarus what was it like, stuff like that, and then someone comes in and pours perfume on somebody's head. And it said, actually said, I think in Mark, that while he was eating, poured perfume on his head and his feet. What would you be thinking? Yeah, it's somebody special. What's going on here? And also that amount of money put on him, and it says the house was filled with the fragrance of the oil. The house was filled with the fragrance of the oil. Now, there's not many times in the scripture where it talks about smell, right? But this must have smelled great. Is there times you smell something and it reminds you of something in the past? You ever do that? Yeah. Sometimes when I smell Valentino's pizza, I go all the way back to when I was 12 years old. And my sister and I used to go to Valentino's. We'd get the pizza. We wouldn't tell, my sister could drive at that time. Wouldn't even tell anybody we were doing it. Just the two of us would open it up. The car was filled with Valentino's pizza smell. But here's the smell. Everybody around. It wasn't like she could sneak and do this. Everybody there, maybe people outside, the whole house was filled with this fragrance. And it said then that she wiped it with her hair. Now, today, it doesn't really matter. I mean, women can do all kinds of things with their hair, right? They can make their hair different colors. They can make it short, long, braid, whatever. Back then, they kept their head covered up. It was considered indecent to have your hair exposed, right? You had to have your hair covered up. So I'm sure we're glad we don't live back in that day. But back in that day, it would be like if a lady came into church and was pulling up her dress or something. It would be that kind of thing, And so here she was. She was just. What do you think? Was she caring what people thought? She was not caring what anybody. Here she takes this valuable perfume. It tells us that she broke it open and she poured it out on him. She broke it open and she poured it out on Jesus, and it filled the room. And this was her way. Her brother had just been raised from the dead. They thought he was gone, and now he's alive. And not only is he alive, he doesn't really care, apparently, if he dies anymore. He's walking around like nothing. All these people are trying to kill him. They've got a bounty out on Jesus and on Lazarus, and he doesn't care. Yeah, I'll sit here. I'll answer any questions. Martha doesn't care. Yeah, I'll host this dinner, and Mary least of all cares. She's all out. She's all in. She has made a decision, and the decision is, I have an opportunity right here, and I'm going to take it. But one of the disciples, Judas Iscariot, son of Simon's son, who would deny him, said, "Why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the money box, and he used to take that which was in it, and what was put in it. But Jesus said, "Let her alone. She has kept this for the day of my burial. For the poor you have with you always, but me you do not have always." Jesus says, "Stop. Let her alone." He says in another passage, she's done what she could. She's done what she could. And he said, she did this for my burial. Did Jesus ever talk about his death, his burial, and his resurrection? Did he ever talk about that? Did he? He did. Yeah. As a matter of fact, he was talking about it more and more. Most people, it was just going over their heads. But Mary and Martha and Lazarus knew firsthand about people dying and coming back to life. They had seen it. And now Mary is realizing, wait a minute, Jesus has taken his life into his own hands right here by coming to this meal. And he's going to die. He's already said he's going to die. And she said, I've got to do something now. I've got to do something to show him that I love him. I've got to do something to show him that I worship him. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what I look like. I've got to do it. I've got to do this.